Reborn as a white snake within the 100,000 Great Mountains. To adapt to the cruel survival environment of the wilderness, I had to use my beastly instincts to suppress my human whims. Every day, I was either performing a snake dance for the eagles or practicing boxing with the rabbits. Finally, after 20 years, I successfully became the overlord of this region. But I also became cold-blooded and ruthless, gradually fading away the memories of my past life. Until this day, a herbalist fell into the water in the mountains. Influenced by the last shred of humanity remaining in my mind, I rescued him and brought him to the foot of the mountain. I thought the matter would end there. But unexpectedly, a few days later, this guy appeared before me again. He pulled out several boiled eggs from his robe, bowing to me repeatedly in gratitude. "Thank you for saving my life. Otherwise, my wife and children would not survive. I wish to gather herbs in these mountains. Please, great snake immortal, grant me your protection." I was somewhat speechless at his words, thinking he was insatiable and greedy, so I turned and left. However, seeing that I didn't bite him, the herbalist assumed I had agreed to his request. From then on, he became a frequent visitor to these woods. Every day, I would coil around a great tree, watching him collect medicinal herbs, cultivate seedlings, and slowly build up a medicinal garden. If we happened to meet, he would sit down familiarly, rambling on about how he picked many herbs lately, how his whole family could now eat their fill, and how he must properly thank me and such things. Eventually, I got annoyed by his incessant chatter and could only avoid him by going another way. 6 months passed like this. The seedlings planted by the herbalist began to mature, and he collected even more herbs every day, which finally caught the envious eyes of his fellow villagers. One day, after I finished my cultivation under the mist, I suddenly sensed 3 figures in the garden, hot humanoid forms. I was instantly enraged, thinking the herbalist had brought people in privately, truly treating this place as his own backyard. So, I slithered aggressively toward the foot of the mountain. But to my surprise, upon arriving outside the garden, I saw the herbalist lying on the ground with blood on his lips, his hands tightly clutching the leg of a brute in the group. "These are my herbs. You can't take them. Are these mountains yours? This is our territory. You have quite the nerve, daring to come here and steal herbs." Meanwhile, the other 2 were joyfully about to pull them up. Seeing the herbs being taken, the herbalist had no choice but to let go of the man's leg, spreading his arms to protect the 2 most valuable herbs, refusing to back down no matter how the 3 struck him. Watching this scene, I couldn't help but find it strange. Was it really worth resorting to violence for just these common herbs? Just as I was thinking whether to do something, I noticed the brute of a man, his face flushing red with anger, veins bulging. He suddenly pulled out a wood-cutting machete, swinging it down toward the herbalist's back. The machete was heavy and not particularly sharp, but it still carved a gash in the herbalist. The other 2 were stunned. They were just ordinary villagers, never intending to commit murder. "What are you afraid of? It's just us here. Who will know whether you took a hand or not?" He wanted to drag the other 2 down with him, but there was no response for a long time. When he habitually turned back to look, he found his neck tightening, as if caught in a pincer. Immediately, a sharp pain followed. Snake venom surged into his body through his neck. Even an immortal pill couldn't save him now. After releasing the dying man, I raised my head and looked at the other 2. They were already scared out of their wits, scrambling and crawling away in terror. I didn't pursue them, nor did I feel any guilt. 20 years of preying on flesh and blood had long ago worn away my humanity. The herbalist looked at me in horror. Perhaps only now did he remember that the white snake before him was a venomous beast. After tossing the man's corpse into an ant nest, when I returned to the garden, I surprisingly found that the herbalist spoke much less. From that moment on, the way he looked at me bore a new expression of fear. Eventually, he stopped speaking altogether. As the weather grew cold, the herbalist waited for the herbs to mature, dug them up, and never returned. His little medicinal garden began to wither into ruin, and I returned to my old life, focusing diligently on my daily cultivation. Until the 2nd year, the herbalist came once. He just gave a distant look and left. What I didn't know was that the world outside was already rife with rumors. They said a giant white snake in the mountains had become a demon. In the legends, I even had a rooster's comb on my head and a fondness for eating humans, causing this area of the forest to become deserted. Another 10 years passed like this. My body grew more powerful, and energy began to condense within me. I didn't know what it was, but I could feel it. The energy was constantly strengthening my physical form. One day, my senses suddenly detected a human shape. It was the herbalist who had come, just like 10 years ago. He bowed again and again. 10 years of time had made this man, who risked his life to gather herbs, look even more weathered. With his hunched back, he surely could no longer climb mountain cliffs. 10 years. I didn't think I'd see you again. I've become a useless old man. I can't earn money for the family, and my son and daughter-in-law have to support me. My old companion passed away the spring before last. The drought left us with nothing. She wouldn't listen and ate guanine clay, only surviving for 7 days. I know she did it to save food for the children. I listened quietly, for the first time not thinking he was rambling. This old man, who worked all his life to feed his family, ultimately could not change the destiny of his household. He didn't understand why, but I did. In this ancient world where class was rigid and chaotic, it was hard for most people to lead a good life. Their very existence was already a mercy from the noble families. In the afternoon, the herbalist left. He didn't have long to live. I smelled the aura of death upon him. Perhaps he would be happy, knowing he could meet his wife after death and save some food for his son's family. But I felt a sense of urgency. The taste of death is not pleasant. I didn't want to die a second time. And so, as a white snake, to avoid death, I began to strive to absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. After a few more years passed, I encountered a very eerie thing. I don't know when it started, but other large snakes kept entering my territory. Even though I used my size advantage to roughly throw them out, another snake would show up the very next day. It annoyed me to no end and made it impossible to cultivate. Finally, having no other choice, I thought about going to see what the ancient human world looked like, but I didn't expect to witness the parting of life and death again. 2 days later, I arrived at the edge of a forest near a village. The first impression this village gave me was poverty. At the foot of the slope were dilapidated thatched huts, and by the creek were many rice fields. A scrawny yellow dog ran across the field ridge. Even the mice were hard to find. I intended to just take a look and return to the deep mountains, but before I left, I unexpectedly met a little girl. The girl was about 6 or 7, with her hair in pigtails, wearing a coarse cloth dress washed to a faded white. She came hopping to the back mountain to catch butterflies and pick flowers. Usually, it was safe here with no animals, but today, a lame old wolf was lurking nearby. Just as the little girl froze in terror, I coiled around the old wolf with extreme speed, then contracted my muscles with force until I crushed its bones. The girl sat on the ground, staring blankly at me and the wolf. After a long while, she spoke curiously. "Are you the snake immortal from the back mountain?" I was somewhat speechless. I didn't expect the legends from back then to still have an influence now. I flicked my tongue twice to indicate that she was right. The little girl's mouth dropped open in an O shape. "Can you understand me?" I nodded my head twice again. She was even more amazed. A giant snake that could understand human speech. "Wow, how magical." She thought for a moment and asked, "Will you eat me?" "Father said all the beasts in the mountains eat people." I shook my head, though I really wanted to nod just to scare her. Having stayed in the mountains for so long, it wasn't easy to find someone to chat with. If I scared her away, it would be hard to find another. Next, the girl's innocence was on full display. She first shouted with joy, and then, before I could react, she ran over and touched my scales with her small hand. "So beautiful. Even prettier than the big porcelain bowl at my house." Thus, I, who originally planned to return to the mountains, remained near the village. The girl, named Yuner, often came to chat with me. When she was tired, she would lie on me and sleep. Months passed in a flash. One day, Yuner came over, sitting on me dejectedly. "Big snake. I'm so hungry." The grain at home was taken by the town's clan leader. He said it was for the imperial tax. But Yuner is so hungry. I understood. The people of this era were organized by clans. The leaders and elders were like the local kings of the towns. Whether it was dividing land, selling property, or even life and death, all decisions were handled by them. The saying, "The law does not reach the village," meant exactly this. If the clan leaders and elders stopped at nothing to extort grain, poor households simply had no way to resist. Thinking it over, I turned and dove into the forest. Under Yuner's expectant gaze, I dragged out a small wild boar. Yuner's eyes lit up. "Is this for me?" Seeing me nod, Yuner's eyes curved into crescents. She ran home shouting and cheering all the way. However, by the next day, this matter began to spread like wildfire through the village. Having the boar, Yuner's father wasn't stingy. After slaughtering and skinning it, he sent meat to other families who also had no grain. These villagers lived at the edge of the 100,000 Great Mountains. Only by sticking together could they survive. At first, everyone said Yuner was lucky. But when the boar meat was gone, and Yuner found 2 wild pheasants on the back mountain, this time, Yuner's parents began to find it strange, though they didn't say much, until there was no food at home again. And Yuner brought back a wolf this time. The whole village couldn't sit still. How could a wild wolf in its prime be found by a little girl? So, dozens of villagers gathered around the wolf on the slope, whispering and discussing. Yuner stood in the middle, head down and silent. Although this food had helped the villagers through a crisis, it was simply too bizarre. If things went wrong, they might treat Yuner as a demon and burn her to death on a bonfire. "Yuner, what's with this wolf?" She rubbed her fingers, head down. "Who sent it? Could it be a wandering hero passing through our village?" The hero her father spoke of referred to those martial artists in the world. But Yuner just shook her head. "Yuner, you must tell the truth. Otherwise, don't call me father anymore." Seeing this, a neighbor wanted to intervene, but her father waved them off, signaling it was fine. Then he glared coldly at her. thinking that if she still didn't speak, he would have to use the broom on her. But perhaps he didn't know that for a 7 or 8-year-old girl, this was the most severe reprimand possible. Yunur immediately panicked, recalling how her parents favored her brother and deliberately neglected her. She grew more and more afraid, fearing the family would truly abandon her. She also remembered how her mother once harshly called her a worthless burden. With a loud wail, Yunur burst into tears. Finally, she told them everything from the dense forest. I sighed in my heart and decided to show myself to see the villagers' reaction. Look, it's the white snake. Everyone's eyes followed the man's gaze. They saw Yunur running forward while crying, hugging me tightly. Her tears flowed as if they cost nothing. I lowered my head and nudged her back twice. After showing myself to announce my presence, I turned and slithered back into the forest, circling around to observe the progress from another side. Seeing that the villagers didn't harm Yunur, I finally put my snake heart at ease. Later, the legend of the snake immortal began in the village again. Some villagers even brought joss paper and candles, burning them in places where I had appeared. Besides thanking me for the food, they prayed for good weather next year and so on. That was all fine. But the most absurd thing was that some even prayed to find a good husband and a good home. Is that even something I can control? Every few days after that, I would bring wild beasts to the village. But the good times didn't last. The miracle in the mountain village soon attracted the attention of interested parties. Yunur came running to the back mountain, shouting as she ran, "Big snake, run! People say they want to catch you and sell you for money. Many hunters are coming, and those on big horses. Father told me to warn you to leave quickly." I nodded my head, turned, and slithered toward the deep mountains. Yunur finally breathed a sigh of relief, waving at my retreating figure. On the other side, many people had arrived at the village. Most were hunters, along with guards carrying large blades. It was said the town's clan leader heard news about me and immediately summoned hunters, intending to enter the mountains to capture the snake himself. Villagers, young and old, knelt on the ground, begging the leader to spare the snake immortal, only to be met with a round of whippings. Finally, the leader used money to lure a few villagers to lead the way to the snake. The group entered the mountains in a grand procession. White snakes are rare, especially a white snake as large and intelligent as me. A true rarity. Whether given as a gift or sold, it would be a guaranteed profit. But these people forgot one thing, that the lethal reputation of the 100,000 Great Mountains was no myth. Keep at it, everyone. We're about to catch the giant snake. Reward for everyone when it's caught. A group of people moved slowly through the valley. After seeing them from a distance, I turned and slithered away, intentionally leaving behind a strong scent. As the hunting dogs became increasingly frantic, an excited look appeared on the clan leader's face. Deep in the forest, the surroundings were eerily quiet. No birds could be heard, and even mice were nowhere to be seen. This absolute silence made the hunting dogs in their team restless. But the hunters in the lead soon made a discovery. The leader spurred his horse forward. The crowd was surrounded by several strange, giant earthen pillars. These earthen pillars were taller than a man, clustered together in various sizes. Recalling that they had seen these things all along the way, the leader instinctively felt a bit uneasy. Just as he was about to order the team to speed up, on the distant slope, my tail had already wrapped around a large rock and hurled it with all my might. It smashed heavily into an earthen pillar. With a clang, a small piece of the pillar shattered, but nothing seemed to happen at first. The crowd was stunned, suspecting an ambush. They gathered in a tight circle, tense for a long time. These people would never have imagined that if they had turned and run the moment the rock landed, they might have survived. But now it was too late. In the next moment, the earthen pillar erupted like a spring with a black tide. Thumb-sized ants swarmed out, instantly turning the ground into a black ocean. The ants covered the greedy men. I left without looking back. Later, those who were lucky enough to escape went mad. The 100,000 Great Mountains once again used its carnage to prove its well-deserved reputation. Seeing that of the dozens who entered, fewer than 10 survived. Even the herbalists dared not enter the mountains again. At the same time, the villagers realized my intelligence was far from low. I was a master of killing with a borrowed blade, which made them fear me even more. I knew I couldn't interact with Yunur too much, otherwise it would easily affect her life, so I decided to return to the deep mountains until 9 years later when I came to the village outskirts again. Perhaps I shared a destiny with Yunur. As soon as I arrived at the back mountain, I saw a pretty figure standing there in a daze. The girl had grown up, but her scent hadn't changed. If you didn't look at the calluses on her hands, Yunur was quite elegant. With her long hair flowing, she was definitely a top-tier beauty in the countryside. Yunur felt something, turned her head and saw the long-lost white figure. Just like when she was a child, she ran over and hugged the white snake. Crying and laughing, she said, "Big snake, where did you go? You've been gone for so many years." Night fell, and the stars twinkled. Yunur sat on the grass leaning against me, her big eyes watching the stars along with my snake eyes. I couldn't actually see the stars. My nearsightedness hadn't changed much after cultivation, but that didn't stop me from playing along. "I'm getting married. Brother Wang in the village is very good. I like him, but I don't want to marry him. Last month, Landlord Gua came to our village. He saw me and said he wants me as a concubine. I know a concubine has no status. Landlord Gua is 40, the same age as my father. The village is poor, and Brother Wang's family is poor too. Every year we dig for grassroots and eat tree bark. But landlord Gua is different. His family can eat meat every day. I won't have to worry about starving. I really don't want to be hungry anymore. Yunur's emotions were somewhat agitated. She took a deep breath. I'm getting married the day after tomorrow. Big snake, can you see me off? I nodded. The starry night was gorgeous. On the hillside, under the bright moon, the sound of crying traveled very, very far. On the wedding day, there was no music and no wedding banquet. A small sedan chair came to take Yunur away. All she took was a small bundle. Yunur's parents were in tears, reluctant to let go. And on a nearby hillside, a young man knelt on the ground wailing. It was the brother Wang Yunur spoke of. He was cursing his own uselessness, that he couldn't keep Yunur fed, or perhaps he hated that the landlord was ruining a good girl. But he could do nothing but watch the small sedan carry away the girl he loved. Inside the chair, Yunur lifted the curtain with one hand. Her eyes caught sight of the rice fields, my long white figure. Her tear-streaked face broke into a happy smile. Perhaps she let down the brother Wang who loved her deeply. Perhaps marrying the old landlord as a concubine was a mistake. But what of it? Fate had tortured her for over a decade. She didn't want to leave food for her children by starving herself to death. She just didn't want to be hungry. She just wanted to live. One can only blame this world and this fate. I followed the small sedan all the way to a manor outside the town. I climbed a large tree, watching from afar as the sedan entered through the manor's back door. A concubine has low status. They are not qualified to enter through the main gate, nor to have a formal ceremony or wedding wine, though it's called taking a concubine. To put it bluntly, it's just finding some amusement. I watched from the tree for a long time, until the sun finally set in the west. I only turned to leave after the manor's lanterns were lit. I returned to my own 100,000 great mountains. In my heart, I silently prayed for the once innocent girl. Could Yunur, who grew up in the mountains, fend off the schemes and intrigues of a large household? Because of what happened to Yunur, I began to cultivate even more diligently. I hoped that my fate would no longer be controlled by others, but I never expected that a year later, a stumbling figure would run into my valley. His clothes were torn, his body covered in scratches, but he ran desperately, as if he'd gone mad. For some reason, I had a terrible premonition, because I could sense that the person was Yunur's brother Wang. Brother Wang stumbled to a stop before me, knelt, and cried out, Snake immortal, I beg you, save Yunur. Hearing his cry, I instantly became a streak of white light, speeding out of the mountains. It was the same hillside. Yunur's parents and the other mountain villagers were gathered around the dying girl. When my figure appeared, everyone dropped to their knees. Lying on a mat, Yunur looked at me. A pale smile crossed her face. It was a smile of relief, so tragically beautiful. Her body was covered in wounds, clearly from being beaten with clubs. Yunur's mother knelt hopefully, pleading, Snake immortal, please save my Yunur. But unfortunately, I didn't know how to heal people. The beatings had been severe, damaging her internal organs. She was beyond saving. The crowd's wails grew deeper. In their eyes, if even I said she couldn't be saved, then there was truly no hope. Yunur weakly waved her hand, signaling not to trouble the big snake. I want to lie on you and watch the sky. Watch the clouds. I nodded. I gently coiled around Yunur's frail body and placed her on my back, coiling up to protect her as she looked up at the sky. Thank you. And then Yunur was gone. Life is both fragile and strong, fleeting and eternal. On that same quiet hillside, there was a new grave. I coiled beside it, just watching, my heart in turmoil. Yunur had left the village, only to return here in the end. This was where she belonged. Brother Wang sat before the grave, muttering about how much Yunur had suffered in the manor. That old bastard didn't treat her like a person. His main wife bullied her every day, often beating and scolding her for no reason. She desperately wanted to come home, but Landlord Gua wouldn't let her go. A few days ago, Landlord Gua tried to give Yunur to Master Zhao. Yunur refused, even if it meant death. I could show no expression, but only I knew the rage burning within me. That night, Brother Wang picked up his axe. One man and one snake headed for the town. I am not afraid of killing. I am even less afraid of karmic retribution. Those people killed Yunur. I had every right to avenge her. A snake cannot live a cowardly life. That night, within Landlord Gua's manor, except for the laborers and low-ranking servants, no one was left alive. The wounds were all snake bites. I used very little venom. A tiny drop was enough to kill a grown man. I didn't want this matter to bring trouble to young Wang. I doubt anyone would dare enter the 100,000 Great Mountains to hunt a snake. After returning to the village, Brother Wang told Yunur's grave that he had avenged her. He said he would find a good woman, marry, and have children. The next day, after investigating the Gua family affair, the local magistrate went to Yunur's grave. He saw me with his own eyes, standing guard. After learning the whole story, the magistrate was deeply moved, realizing even a beast has feelings. The matter of the killings was quietly closed. Some wanted the authorities to take action, but they were rebuffed. The magistrate's message was simple. If you think you can handle it, be my guest. I can tell you where the white snake is. You just have to be brave enough to go. Everyone remembered what had happened to that other family before, and they all fell silent. But I had no interest in any of this. I knew that when a person dies, their light is extinguished. Yunner was gone, and I lost all desire to venture out of the mountains. I stayed obediently in my own territory to cultivate. More than a decade passed in a flash. On this day, I slowly shed my old skin. My body had grown to 8 meters long. I had become a true behemoth. Yet, within my own territory, I faced another life and death battle. My opponent was a gray wolf whose spiritual intelligence had awakened. It had a rudimentary understanding of cultivation and sought to devour powerful prey to strengthen itself. So, after learning of my existence, it began to provoke me relentlessly. At first, I tried to avoid it, hoping it would move on to another target. But it mistook my avoidance for weakness. Finally, I decided I had to kill that wretched wolf. After some preparation, the drooling wolf came to challenge me again, just as I'd planned. In its eyes, I was nothing but a prime meal, one that would make it stronger. So it was careless. At the dueling ground, the two of us faced off. There was no probing, no holding back. It was a fight to the death from the start. I deliberately exposed a weakness, using my own body as bait to lure it in. As its fangs sank into my flesh, I injected a needle-sharp dose of venom into its back. The sharp fangs tore at me, and blood flowed freely. The scent of blood drove the wolf into a frenzy. It ignited my own ferocity. In the end, I dragged the wolf into the deep pool. The moment it hit the water, the wolf knew it was over. In the water, it was powerless against me. The fight seemed short, but it had lasted over half an hour. I had lost too much blood. My body was racked with exhaustion. I desperately needed to devour flesh and blood to recover. As I swallowed large gulps of the wolf's flesh, I felt a heavy, burning sensation. The injuries to my body were severe, and I passed out. My massive body drifted downstream with the current. Meanwhile, by a thatched hut, a wooden gate opened. A kind-faced, white-haired old woman stepped out. She was carrying a wooden basin full of clothes to the stream. A little yellow puppy, just weaned, trotted playfully behind her. Suddenly, the puppy started barking loudly at the stream. At first, the old woman paid it no mind. But when she reached the bank, she saw a massive shape in the shallow water. With a clatter, the wooden basin fell to the ground. The old woman dropped to her knees and began to kowtow. Oh, heavens above! How could a dragon have fallen from the sky? The old woman, who had never seen such a thing, mistook me for a fallen dragon. Unexpectedly, as she spoke those words, while I was still unconscious, something stirred in the depths of my weakened soul. It was as if some unknown energy was infused into me. I didn't know it then, but this was the legendary power of faith. It was a fortune that demons dreamed of. After she finished her prayers, the old woman rolled up her trousers and struggled to pull my cold body from the water. Soaking in the cold water for so long had lowered my body temperature, sapping my vitality. By pulling me out into the sun, she had unwittingly sped up my recovery. Seeing that I was still unresponsive, the kind old woman brought out an incense burner from her home and lit incense before me. She even gathered a pile of rice straw and placed it under my head for comfort. A few days later, I opened my eyes. The moment I raised my head, I saw the incense burner, the old woman kowtowing, and a little barking puppy. The first time I truly saw her, I had a strange, faded feeling. It felt as if I was destined to repay her kindness. So I bowed my head 3 times in gratitude. Divine Dragon, please bless us with a bountiful harvest. Divine Dragon, please bless my long-departed husband, that he may have a good reincarnation. The paths of demons and humans are different. I couldn't stay here for long. I had to return to the mountains, but I didn't go far. I felt a sense of debt to the old woman, a debt that needed to be repaid. An old woman living all alone must face many hardships. I could, at the right time, provide some help. The ancient earth myth, Legend of the White Snake, is terrifying. A powerful demon who could summon wind and rain repaid a kindness by marrying her benefactor. How horrifying. Someone saved your life once. Just save their life in return and the debt is paid. Why make things so complicated it becomes a living hell? So I settled in the woods not far from the old woman's house. Half a year later, disaster came to this paradise far from the cities. In the grand scheme of the world, what has long been united must divide, and what has long been divided must unite. The flames of war raged to the edge of the 100,000 great mountains. The government began conscripting men. Landlords seized the chance to annex land and raise taxes, and so-called heroes rose up in rebellion. The poor village was depleted of its able-bodied men. After several rounds of conscription, all men over 15 had been taken. Only the old, the weak, and women remained. A village without its young men was a natural target for roaming bandits. One day, my severe nearsightedness was as bad as ever. It wasn't until I climbed the hill behind the village that my heat sense detected a great fire in the village. Many human figures were moving about chaotically. Bandits, banditry, an ancient profession, thrived in times like these. Anyone could fall into it, especially in times of chaos. They were like fish in water, free and unrestrained. With luck, they might even be granted amnesty by the government, transforming into local officials overnight. After a moment's thought, I slithered through the grass toward the old woman's house. The bandits were swaggering through the village. When I reached her door, they saw a giant white snake rearing up before them. Before they could even scream and run, I snatched one in my jaws and flung him through the air. Monster! As the cry rang out, the remaining bandits fled in terror. But behind me, the old woman suddenly fell to her knees. She knelt on the ground, weeping. Oh, Divine Dragon, I beg you, Please save our village. We can't go on like this. The sight of the white-haired old woman kneeling and weeping was hard to bear. I didn't understand why the world was filled with such suffering. After a moment's thought, I shook my head. There were too many bandits, all armed with swords and bows. If I rushed in, I might be killed and become their next meal. It was enough to protect my benefactor. Being a hero wasn't so easy. Besides, I was a snake. It was a miracle I didn't eat people. Why should I try to be a savior? I coiled at her doorway, watching the black smoke rise from the village. The next moment, I suddenly whirled around, and with all my might, I fled into the mountains like a madman. Just a moment ago, I had confirmed that this world was one with demons and cultivators. A cultivation world. My heat sense clearly detected someone flying in the air. Yes, flying. Then, on the ground, the heat signatures of the bandits began to cool one by one. A drop in body temperature doesn't mean a fever breaking. It's the chill of death. Those who could fly were immortals. And immortals have a habit of slaying demons. I had no choice but to flee for my life. A streak of white light shot through the forest. Even though I'd made it deep into the mountains, the unease in my soul didn't fade. To survive, I couldn't relax for a single moment. I just kept running. Outside the mountains, a pair of beautiful eyes watched where I vanished. The white shadow on the ground crossed ridges and leapt over streams, following the very stream that had once carried me out, fleeing upstream. When an animal is in danger, his first instinct is to return to its den. I was no different. If all else failed, I'd hide at the bottom of the deep pool for a few weeks. What I didn't know was that someone was flying in the sky above, watching my desperate escape with amusement. 3 people stood on a flying sword in the sky. 2 children clung tightly to a woman. The woman was about 30 and exquisitely beautiful, like a celestial fairy. The little boy pointed at me in the forest. "Master," he said huffily, "kill it quickly." The 2 children were about 10 years old, a boy and a girl each carrying a sword. They looked like celestial attendants from a myth. The woman smiled. "Why should we kill it? That white vermin was harming people in broad daylight. If we don't kill it, the people won't be satisfied." And what kind of people did it kill? Villagers, of course. If we hadn't arrived when we did, that old woman would have been its next victim. Ask my junior sister if you don't believe me. The boy looked at the girl beside him. The little girl thought for a moment and nodded. The woman shook her head and sighed. Reading 10,000 books is no substitute for traveling 10,000 miles. What you see with your own eyes isn't always the truth. I should bring you 2 down the mountain more often. Not all humans are good, and not all demons are evil. The rampaging bandits were evil. The white snake killed evil men. It never harmed an innocent villager. Tell me, is the snake more hateful? Or are those wicked bandits? The 2 children lowered their heads, silent. But deep down, they still couldn't accept that a demon could have a good side. The woman seemed to know what her disciples were thinking. Remember, always think before you act. Don't let appearances cloud your judgment. The white snake has returned to its den. Let's go down and take a look. Let's go take a look. Panting, I finally reached my valley and breathed a sigh of relief. The constant flight had drained my energy. I was utterly exhausted. I expertly coiled around the ancient ginkgo tree. My constant climbing had worn its trunk and branches smooth. The outside world is too dangerous. I will never go out again. I made up my mind. Even if the world outside was paved with gold, I wouldn't go. I'm staying here no matter what. In midair, the 3 of them looked down with amusement at the pathetic-looking snake. The woman surveyed her surroundings. Though this isn't a celestial grotto, it's a fine place nonetheless. The spiritual energy is decent. The kind cultivators might look down on, but for a little demon, it's peaceful enough. It's more than enough for a little demon with awakened intelligence to cultivate. The deep pool and the surrounding mountainside form a crude spirit-gathering array. That ancient ginkgo tree is its focal point. This white snake has some luck, some good fortune. With a flash, the 3 of them appeared on the large rock beneath the tree. The girl bent down curiously and touched the stone I had polished smooth. Huh? I froze. Were they immortals? Cultivators? To be followed all the way to my home. I didn't know whether to run or continue pretending to be an ordinary beast. My body acted on instinct. I opened my jaws wide, baring my 2 sharp fangs in a warning. The woman was very beautiful. She would have been even more beautiful if she wasn't smiling at me. This little snake has only just begun to condense its spiritual energy, yet its intelligence is quite high. Interesting. Hearing that I, who had just reared up to attack, immediately gave up all resistance. I slid down the trunk and coiled myself flat on the ground, pressing my head to the earth in surrender. What else could I do? Didn't I see their swords floating in midair? These were sword immortals. I kept my head down, not daring to move a muscle. I just hoped these powerful beings wouldn't bother with a mere snake like me. Then, with my keen sense of smell, I sensed someone approaching me. The ground didn't vibrate. Needless to say, that person's skill was so profound they could walk on snow without leaving a trace. There were 3 people in front of me, but I could only sense the presence of the two children. As for the woman, I could only pinpoint her location by scent. The woman observed the white snake before her. It was an ordinary snake, and yet it wasn't. It was only slightly stronger than a common wild beast. Mountain spirits and wild demons usually have low intelligence, yet this white snake's was exceptionally high. Its initial surprise at seeing them, its panicked escape, and its attempt to feign ignorance. Then, after just one word from her, it had immediately surrendered. Very interesting indeed. Soon, an interesting idea formed in the woman's mind. Little snake, come with me to the mountain. How would you like to be a guardian beast for our gate? She hadn't actually planned this. She had come purely out of curiosity to pass the time between her cultivation sessions. It wasn't because of the snake's high intelligence either. Though it was clever, there were plenty of intelligent demons in the world. What changed her mind was my set of fine, smooth, beautiful scales. People are drawn to beautiful things. It's like seeing a beautiful string of beads. Of course, you want to own it. I looked up at the woman, at the captivated look on her face as she stared at my scales, and I could only nod in agreement. If I refused, even though I knew she wasn't a bad person, that she was kind-hearted, what if she took a fancy to a new snakeskin robe? The two children didn't seem to mind. In fact, they seemed to find the idea of having a snake amusing. There was no need for further discussion with a low-level demon snake. The woman flicked her long sleeve, and I was sucked inside. Everything went black, and I lost consciousness. I was being treated like a mere object. When I woke again, I found myself halfway up a majestic mountain. The first thing I saw was a stone tablet, a giant boulder as tall as a 7-story building. On it were carved 3 huge, flowing characters. Mythical Mountain. Mythical Mountain rose through the mist to pierce the sky. A range of 10,000 peaks. The peaks were majestic, the valleys vast. I remembered visiting Mount Hua on Earth in my past life, but this mountain was taller, larger, and more magnificent. I knew I had encountered a true master. At first, I was resistant to being captured to guard a gate, but now it seemed my luck wasn't so bad after all. With a powerful backer, life would be good. Even things this master threw away would be of immense benefit to a snake like me. The woman led her 2 young apprentices, talking and laughing as they ascended the mountain. I followed close behind, slithering up the stone steps carved into the cliffside. Waterfalls, large and small, were everywhere. The pools were crystal clear, with steep cliffs and peaks that pierced the clouds. The majesty of the deep ravines was overwhelming. Palaces and halls were built upon the mountain in layers, like a heavenly court. Stone bridges and long corridors connected the peaks. Ancient pines grew from massive boulders, or next to waterfalls. Clouds and mist swirled around like waves on a jade sea. When a gentle breeze blew, pavilions would appear and disappear within the sea of clouds. To sit in one of those pavilions, with a pot of wine, playing a zither, would truly be paradise on earth. I raised my head to the sky. A massive formation diagram rotated slowly. No wonder they walked up the mountain instead of flying. The sky. It must be a no-fly zone. Along the path, we met other cultivators in white and blue robes. Some were old, some were young. When they saw the woman, they all stepped aside respectfully. Along the way, I gathered a lot of information. This place was the Pure Yang Palace. The woman, Yurong, was the junior martial sister of the palace head. The little boy was called Yang Mu. The younger girl was called Su Ling. They were Yurong's personal disciples. I heard that in the entire Pure Yang Palace, Yurong only had these 2 disciples. Countless people would kill to become her disciples, but had no chance. It seemed I had latched onto a powerful backer. Soon we arrived at a huge, ancient memorial archway. In front of the gate stood a dozen or so gatekeepers. The sight made me very nervous. It was a grand archway. Above it were inscribed the words, Pure Yang Palace. The 3 large characters brimmed with spiritual energy. For some reason, after entering the mountain gate, I found the air to be exceptionally fresh. I slithered behind the 3 of them. We passed many squares where disciples were practicing. We passed one exquisite hall after another. We crossed stone bridges and long corridors. After a long time, we arrived at a remote, quiet, and beautiful palace. The palace stood on the edge of a cliff, floating on a sea of clouds. Ancient pines stood tall and green. Looking at the empty hall with only the 3 of them inside, I finally understood why I had been brought back. So they really did just want me to guard the gate. In any case, at least I didn't have to worry about becoming some rich lady's handbag. To stay alive as a snake was a great thing. There was no need for kowtowing or other formalities. There wasn't any ceremony either. Capturing a snake demon to guard a gate, it wasn't like she was taking on a new disciple. There was no need for any kind of ritual. From now on, this hall will be your home. You should also patrol the nearby mountain temples. I've already informed the kitchens and the internal affairs department. You can go to the kitchens for food. Also, remember not to wander around carelessly. Otherwise, no one will be able to save your life. I nodded. Seeing how intelligent I was, Yurong seemed very satisfied. Then, without paying me any mind, she immediately began to instruct her 2 disciples in their cultivation. I decided to pretend I didn't understand. I found a spot in the hall, coiled up, and eavesdropped. Her 2 disciples didn't seem too friendly towards me. Yang Mu, in particular, would often glare at me. The little girl, Su Ling, on the other hand, was very mischievous. She would often reach out to touch my flickering tongue. Suddenly, I didn't have to worry about hunting for food. I didn't have to be wary of predators. It was a little hard to get used to. It was very quiet here, and very safe. Outside the hall, immortal cranes spread their wings. The clouds and mist churned. Inside the hall, a white snake was openly eavesdropping. Thus began my life of cultivation. When I had nothing to do, I'd wander around the palace. I'd scare away the rats and drive away the insects. Then I'd slither to the open space in front of the hall to watch Yu Rong's two disciples practice. In the morning, I'd go to the cliff's edge to breathe in the clouds and mist. When idle, I'd stare at the jade bottle on Yu Rong's tea table. Inside were delicious medicinal pills, but they weren't something a mere snake was qualified to eat. 3 days passed like this. Besides eavesdropping, I would just wander around the sect. When I was tired, I'd crawl back to Yu Rong's palace and coil up on a giant rock at the cliff's edge to sleep. As for guarding the hall, I refused to believe there weren't protective arrays around it. Yu Rong's disciple, Yang Mu, had a rigid personality, while Su Ling was a mischievous little girl. She could never sit still. Ever since the white snake arrived, Su Ling's eyes would light up. Whenever she was free, she'd come play with me. And so it was just as I had fallen asleep, I heard someone approaching. I opened my eyes. My nearsighted eyes struggled to see that it was Yu Rong walking over. But something seemed off. Yu Rong's expression was serious. Her tone was stern. "White snake, how can you be so lazy? Get to work immediately." The Yu Rong before me was scolding me. I flicked my tongue a few times. I lazily lowered my head and went back to sleep. Su Ling said with frustration and dispelled the illusion. "Ah, you saw through it again. This isn't fun." She reverted to her true form as Su Ling. I was very pleased with myself. At first, I was startled, but I quickly found the flaw. The illusion only deceived the eyes. Su Ling and Yu Rong smelled different. My tongue easily picked up her scent. It easily captured her unique scent particles. Also, in terms of infrared vision, Su Ling's small stature was very obvious. I spent several days wandering among the countless palaces and pavilions of Manhwa, exploring at my leisure. I finally got a general understanding of the situation. The Pure Yang Palace was said to have been founded by a powerful being from the immortal realm. It is the guardian sect of the Great Tang Empire. Its foundations are deep, with countless masters. It is deservedly the #1 sect in the world for those seeking immortality. The sect is roughly divided into 5 branches. First is the Yushu branch of the sect leader, Li Xiangyan. Then there are the branches of the sect leader's 4 martial siblings, Guzong, Xuzhong, Liling, Shuyun, Zishu, and finally, Yu Rong's Qingshu branch. Each branch usually keeps to its own territory. The place where I am is the Qingshu Palace. Almost everyone in the world has a childhood dream of joining the Pure Yang Palace to cultivate immortality, to seek the Tao and live forever. However, due to limitations in aptitude, not even 1 in 10,000 who try to enter the mountain succeeds. Those who can enter the gate are all the best of their generation. They are the type whose very skulls are brimming with talent, the kind whose spiritual energy can't be contained even by a coffin lid. The Pure Yang Palace is the leader of the righteous sects. It is the most respected by the people of the world. With its righteous aura, it upholds justice. Whether it's evil cultivators or demons causing trouble in the world, the Pure Yang disciples who travel down the mountain will always eradicate evil when they see it. Most importantly, the people of the Pure Yang Palace cultivate their hearts. They have little interest in worldly affairs. This is also why the mortal emperor regards Pure Yang as the guardian sect of the nation. I felt like I had really hit the jackpot. It was the perfect paradise for a freeloader like me. This is the guardian sect of the nation, after all. Who would dare to come to this mountain and cause trouble? Yang Mu and Su Ling noticed that the lazy white snake had become much more diligent recently. In the mountain forests around the palace, forget rats, there wasn't even a single bug. Wherever I slithered, the lingering scent of a snake would scare all the rodents into fleeing for their lives. The white snake, who was only supposed to guard the hall, was actually putting in the effort to clean up the surrounding environment. In the palace belonging to Yu Rong's Qingshu branch, there were only 3 people, including Yu Rong, and 1 snake. They said I was caught to guard the gate, but in reality, I was just a pet for them to look at. I didn't have to guard the gate every day. With nothing else to do, I started to ponder how to speed up my cultivation. There are many opportunities in a blessed immortal mountain like this. For example, the strong scent of spiritual pills and elixirs wafting over from the Lingshu Palace on the wind. The Lingshu branch specializes in concocting medicines, refining pills, and drawing talismans. Their medical skills are superb. It's the peak in Pure Yang dedicated to medicine and alchemy. Everyone thinks the disciples of the Lingshu branch only know alchemy and can't fight, but that's where they're wrong. Alchemy requires a solid foundation. Plus, by saving people with their medical skills, they make plenty of friends. They can get their hands on any sword techniques or treasures. They are incredibly wealthy, and so I set my sights on Lingshu. I was targeting the Lingshu disciples precisely because they were so rich. These guys are very wealthy. If I just came here and picked up some of their trash, I would definitely benefit. It's like playing a video game. The high-level players don't care about the junk items, but for a low-level character, that junk is treasure. In front of the Lingshu Palace Hall, on a lotus-shaped stone base, stood a huge, gourd-shaped alchemy furnace. The furnace was covered in inscribed arrays. Copper bells hung from its 8 corners. I looked at the furnace, wondering to myself. I didn't know what the purpose of hanging copper bells on a furnace was. I stared for a long time, but couldn't figure it out. I casually passed through the main hall and went to the backyard. The 2 disciples guarding the hall acted as if they hadn't seen me. The news that their martial aunt had brought back a white snake had quickly spread throughout Mount Hua. At first, they thought it was some rare, exotic beast, but it turned out to be just an ordinary white snake. So everyone lost interest. As for stopping it, there was no need. It was just a pet snake. At most, it would just pick up some medicinal dregs in the Lingshu Palace. I arrived outside the alchemy room. I paid no mind to the curious Lingshu disciples who had gathered to watch. I went to my designated spot, coiled up, and waited quietly. Both alchemy and medicine making are prone to failure. The resulting waste dregs are not edible. Failed pills, in particular, are toxic and can easily cause poisoning. The usual way to dispose of them is to collect them, register them, and then throw them away. But now they have a new use. A disciple in charge looked at the newly delivered failed pills, a new purpose in mind. After logging them with a brush, he placed them aside. He smiled with satisfaction. This white snake is quite useful. Saves me the trouble of disposing of the failed pills. This stuff has no real function. I really don't understand what good it does to eat it. Failed pills and medicinal dregs are useless to humans, and they contain toxins. But for me, they are a great tonic. They are only toxic relative to humans. Besides, with my sense of smell, I can tell which ones are edible and which are poisonous. I opened my serpentine mouth. I aimed at the dozen or so failed pills on the porcelain plate and inhaled sharply. The failed pills were sucked into my mouth. Then I coiled up again and continued to wait leisurely. I had truly mastered the snake's ability to ingest things. I had been coming to Lingshu Palace to get failed pills and dregs. For almost a month now, my cultivation was skyrocketing. 2 female cultivators walked into the hall. They took out 2 pills of subpar quality. The cultivator offered the pills to me. Here, Big White. This is for you. I sneered inwardly, but I obediently went forward, opened my mouth, and ate them. Pills of poor quality mean their medicinal effects are insufficient. But for me, they were already a top-grade tonic. After waiting for 2 more batches of failed pills and a box of dregs, I ate them all and slithered away. Recently, my cultivation had been rising rapidly. The failed pills, dregs, and the female cultivator semi-finished pills were very effective. After absorbing them, my whole serpentine body felt refreshed and invigorated. If I were to encounter that gray wolf demon now, I wouldn't need to use venom or go into the water. I could guarantee I'd strangle him on the spot. I slithered back to Qingshu Palace. Without even a glance at the 2 children still practicing hard, I coiled myself motionlessly on the ancient pine at the cliff's edge. I began to digest the medicinal power in my belly. It seeped through my veins, permeating my entire body. I didn't expect the digestion to take a whole day this time. When I woke up the next day, I felt a tightness all over my body. I knew I was about to shed my skin again. Su Ling, who was practicing her sword, glanced over. She saw that the big snake coiled on the ancient pine looked a little strange. She stopped practicing and went to check. Master, something's wrong. Yang Mu didn't understand. He looked at me and also felt that something was different. Yu Rong was meditating on a cushion. Hearing the shout, she had to open her eyes. Master, something's wrong. Big White is dying. In a blur. Su Ling was instantly brought to the ancient pine at the cliff's edge by her master. Su Ling pointed at me. Master, look. Big White's whole body is dull and lusterless. Even its eyes have turned white. Yu Rong raised her hand and used a spiritual art. She calmly and carefully scanned my body. She said faintly, "Don't worry. Big White is fine. Perhaps it is undergoing a transformation." Hearing this, Su Ling breathed a sigh of relief. Yang Mu remained as quiet as ever, his expression indifferent. What has the white snake been eating these past few days? Yu Rong thought about it. She didn't think it was possible for the snake to cultivate so quickly on its own. It was more like it had eaten something good, which led to its vigorous life force and increased cultivation. Yu Rong's expression turned stern. What? Did you two give your cultivation pills to the snake? Su Ling and Yang Mu looked at each other awkwardly. Of course not. Big White has just been going to the Lingshu Palace recently. It ate a lot of failed pills and medicinal dregs. The Du disciple who manages the dregs has had a much easier time lately. I think it ate almost a whole basin's worth. Hearing this, the corner of Yu Rong's mouth twitched. Being knowledgeable and experienced, she quickly understood the situation. A human's ability to absorb and digest is inferior to that of a snake. To a snake, failed pills and dregs are practically tonics. You have to understand the ingredients for those medicines and pills are all potent tonics. They are all things cultivators use to enhance their cultivation and heal their injuries. To eat a whole basin of that, it's about to evolve. The 3 of them stared intently at me. Before long, I began to move on the hard surface of the ancient pine. From time to time, I rubbed my head against its sharp edges. Soon, the scales on my head began to peel back, revealing the new snakeskin underneath. I rubbed slowly against the tree. I used the branches to catch the old skin, struggling to break free. First the head, then the body. It was a steady and slow process. The master and her 2 disciples, who usually had little to do, stood at the cliff's edge, watching carefully. Every shedding is a dangerous time for a snake. If it fails to shed successfully, it will surely die. It took a full hour. When my tail finally emerged from the old skin, Su Ling clapped happily. Yu Rong also showed a smile, looking thoughtful. For some reason, after watching the entire process of me shedding my skin, her state of mind seemed to have improved slightly. Shedding the old skin, being reborn. All things have their own natural way. After shedding my skin, I clung to the ancient pine and fell into a deep sleep. When I woke up again, I had grown to 9 meters long. Within this famous sect of the cultivation world, I found my own way of life. In the early morning, I breathe in the clouds and mist at the cliff's edge. When I'm hungry, I go to the kitchens for meat. I go to Lingshu Palace to freeload and improve my cultivation. Then I return to Qingshu Palace to guard the gate and sleep. Life was unbelievably leisurely. Su Ling noticed that I had been going to the Taiji Plaza frequently. Taiji Plaza is where the disciples of the Pure Yang Palace practice martial arts. Viewed from high above, from high in the sky, the plaza is a giant Bagua diagram. In the center is a huge yin-yang symbol. The plaza is huge, at least the size of 10 soccer fields. I guessed that it was most likely created by a powerful being who directly flattened a mountain peak with their powers. Over 1,000 disciples were practicing their swords in the plaza. The sword chi was vast, like mountains, seas, and wind. Some disciples were practicing sword formations, while more were practicing their sword techniques. Practicing here allows one to feel the sword chi. Junior disciples can also observe the swordplay of their seniors. When their hands itch for a fight, they can spar with their martial brothers. When the young disciples were resting and discussing sword techniques, they would occasionally turn their heads to look at the white snake nearby. I was indeed secretly learning from them. The Taiji Plaza is where low-level disciples practice. As for the places where high-level disciples practice, I wouldn't be able to understand even if I went. Building a good foundation in martial arts is the most important thing. So I stayed at the Taiji Plaza to learn the techniques. I stayed there for a long time. I then moved on. New disciples who have just entered the sect, besides going to the Taiji Plaza to practice swordplay, also have to come to Zwang Peak to meditate and cultivate. They practice how to circulate their energy and enter the true world of cultivation. Zwang Peak is very large. There are open platforms of various sizes all over the mountain. Waterfalls and streams flow through them, adding to the immortal atmosphere. At the summit of Zwang Peak, there is a giant rock. At the summit of the peak, there is a giant rock. The top of the rock is as large as a basketball court. An ancient stone pavilion stands at its edge. In front of the pavilion is an ancient peach tree. Those who can cultivate on top of this giant rock are all exceptionally talented geniuses among the disciples. The palace elders, or those with extremely high cultivation, will come to answer questions and teach. Even the sect leader occasionally comes to instruct the disciples. Of course, Yu Rong also comes to teach. Yang Mu and Su Ling are regulars here. Today, an elder was teaching the lesson. An elder isn't necessarily an old man. As long as one's cultivation reaches a certain level, they can be promoted to elder. The youngest disciples were only 5 or 6 years old. They couldn't help but curiously turn their heads to look at the giant white snake coiled in the peach tree. My head was lowered, as if I were listening to the lecture. This training ground for talented disciples once again became my target for secret learning. I habitually flicked my tongue, trying hard to remember these scriptures that I had heard before, but never studied seriously. Those young disciples didn't know how much of a miracle it was for a snake to be able to cultivate. Just unlocking the shackles of intelligence bars the path of cultivation for most birds and beasts. Without a master, without methods, without a sect, cultivation is difficult. It's incredibly difficult. Now that I have the chance, I must give it my all. I must put in all my effort. I must try my best to remember everything. The path to immortality is incredibly arduous. All I can do is use all my strength to climb upward. I learned a lot that day. As the red sun set, I slithered my huge body back towards Qingshu Palace. I had to spend the night digesting and understanding, integrating all the things I had learned that day. The next day, after my morning breathing exercises, I took a rare opportunity to sleep in. At mealtime, I leisurely made my way to the kitchens. Over there, the cooks had probably already prepared meat for me. The quality was average, but there was always enough to fill me up, which I was very satisfied with. Arriving at the kitchens, I familiarly went to the back to enjoy a basin of meat by myself. In the front hall, the disciples who had just been chatting and laughing suddenly fell silent. The sect's second senior brother, Lian Tianqing, walked into the dining hall with a sour look on his face. No one dared to breathe too loudly, afraid of offending the ill-tempered Lian Tianqing. The moody Lian Tianqing wasn't there to eat. He was there to vent his frustration. Seeing the disciples in the dining hall were all well-behaved, he couldn't find any fault with them, so he went to the back kitchen, wanting to find fault there and let off some steam. The chubby head chef's face turned bitter when he saw Lian Tianqing approach. Just then, Lian Tianqing's gaze shot towards the backyard. I had just swallowed a piece of fatty meat and hadn't had time to run. An icy, grim reaper-like face appeared before me. A grim face appeared before me. Steward Zhang. How could you let a beast into the kitchen? Steward Zhang, his face covered in sweat, nervously explained. I reared up and let out a warning hiss. I couldn't just watch and do nothing. I couldn't let Steward Zhang get in trouble because of me. I didn't believe this coffin-faced guy would actually dare to kill me. You beast, you're looking for death. Lian Tianqing was a psychopath. I didn't believe it before, but when I saw his palm strike towards me, I realized that Lian Tianqing was indeed a very unlikable person. I regretted provoking him. With a wave of his palm, a mere low-level snake demon was sent flying. With a loud crash, the 9-meter-long snake smashed through the kitchen's door and window and crashed into the main dining hall. It knocked over 3 tables in a row and pinned several disciples before coming to a stop. I shook my head, feeling a little dizzy. There was a taste of blood in my mouth. I had suffered internal injuries. After attacking me, Lian Tianqing knew he had gone a bit too far. He was in an awkward position. I couldn't speak human words, so I cursed him out in my mind with classic insults. Ignoring the many disciples present, I thrashed about wildly and charged towards Lian Tianqing in the kitchen. It didn't matter if I couldn't beat him. I had to let him know that I was a desperate creature who didn't care about its own life, a creature that didn't value its life. At least here, he wouldn't dare to actually kill me. The 9-meter-long snake. I charged wildly through the dining hall, which was full of tables, causing absolute chaos. It was utter pandemonium. Lian Tianqing, who had started to calm down after seeing me turn the dining hall into a complete mess, his anger instantly flared up. Blood rushed to his head. He drew his sword and charged at me. Without a second thought, I turned and dove into the crowd of disciples, using them as human shields. You beast! Get out here! The dining hall door wasn't large. Normally, everyone was polite and made way for each other, so it was never crowded. But now it was a total mess. The disciples couldn't run out, and they couldn't get out of the way. They all started cursing loudly. The entire dining hall was as chaotic as a marketplace. Food and dishes flew everywhere. Disciples were jumping around in a panic. Steward Zhang and the others watched, stunned. Lien Tianxing was hindered by the crowd of disciples and couldn't move quickly, and he didn't dare use his sword for fear of hurting someone. But that damn snake slithered close to the ground, weaving between table legs and people's legs, like a slippery loach. Just as the chaos in the dining hall reached its peak, in the not-so-distant Tai Chi Square, a young man with a full head of silver hair looked towards the dining hall. He frowned. His figure vanished in an instant, reappearing above the dining hall. Looking down, he saw disciples scrambling and tumbling out of the small dining hall entrance. The door and windows were shattering. Inside, there was a cacophony of crashes. Tables and chairs were broken. Bowls were flying everywhere. It could be said that since the founding of Chunyang Palace, there had never been such a chaotic scene. The person who arrived was none other than one of the 5 masters of Chunyang, the Zishu master, Qi Yun. Qi Yun valued rules and etiquette above all else. He was usually in charge of enforcing discipline and managing the defenses of Chunyang Palace. He had no tolerance for even the slightest infraction. Seeing the scene before him, he was instantly furious. Enough! All of you stop. I, who had been zipping around, was suddenly slammed to the ground. The other disciples were also forced to the ground in undignified positions. Even Lien Tianxing couldn't move. Su Ling, who had just run to the door to break up the fight, ended up face-planting on the ground. Everyone fell silent. No one dared to move. Qi Yun's cultivation was profound. With just one glance, he understood what had happened. He glanced at me. That single glance sent a chill down my spine. Fortunately, his gaze quickly shifted to Lien Tianxing. "Senior brother Qi, let me explain." Silence. Lien Tianxing's face was grim. He glared angrily. "You are the second disciple of the Chunyang sect leader. How could you quarrel with disciples? And even a beast? Haven't you brought enough shame upon us?" This foolish disciple obeys. Lien Tianxing bowed twice. Then he excused himself, rose, and flew towards Reflection Cliff. After dealing with Lien Tianxing, Qi Yun turned his head to look at the white snake. His eyebrows twitched. I was so scared I didn't even dare to flick my tongue. Who knew what this famously strict master might suddenly decide to do, like make snake soup? Qi Yun turned to look at Su Ling, who was still on the ground. "Disciple Su Ling, you are a guardian of Qingshu Palace. This white snake knows no etiquette. I order you to take it back and discipline it strictly. The white snake is forbidden from eating in the dining hall for 3 months. Su Ling was surprised. Senior Uncle Qi Yun had actually spared the white snake. Since when was her senior uncle so lenient? But then again, as one of the 5 masters of Chunyang, he couldn't possibly hold a grudge against a little snake. "Everyone disperse. Artisans, repair the dining hall as soon as possible." Qi Yun flicked his sleeve and vanished from the air in an instant. This teleportation skill made me very envious. In the distance, Lien Tianxing, flying towards Reflection Cliff, heard Qi Yun's punishment for the white snake. His face darkened. He gritted his teeth and flew away faster. Su Ling took out a healing pill and put it in my mouth. After eating the pill, I felt much better all over. I ignored Su Ling's nagging and swayed my way back to Qingshu Palace. I slithered back to Qingshu Palace. Then I was punished by Yu Rong. Su Ling clutched her stomach, laughing. Even Yang Mu's icy face couldn't help but twitch at the corners of his mouth. In front of the statue, the white snake held its head up, motionless, balancing a red candle on my head, punished by Yu Rong to be a candlestick. After the new year, Manhwa entered its northern winter. The world was covered in ice and snow. It was like a fairyland. The ice and snow melted. Spring returned to the earth. I woke up one morning in a daze. I saw the snow outside the main hall melting and the weather warming up. Meltwater dripped from the green tiles on the roof like rain. For some reason, I felt a deep sense of unease in my soul, a feeling I'd never had before, and that unease came from the sky. I lifted my head and sucked the entire box of waste medicinal dregs next to me into my mouth. I shifted my body a few times, changed my position, and continued to rest, absorbing the pills to build up my strength. Facing danger, my instincts told me to eat my fill and replenish my energy to face the crisis. The early spring was still chilly. I didn't plan on going out. The low temperature would make my body stiff, and my mind slow. I wouldn't be agile enough. I slept for another 2 months. Spring rain pattered on pear blossoms. Spring arrived, greening the grass and trees. In spring, cats lay on the rooftops, exposing their bellies to the warm sunlight. The mountains were covered in wildflowers. The pear trees were white as snow. Countless young couples with paper umbrellas went on spring outings. Even the sect leader went to the sea of flowers to enjoy tea and wine. Truly carefree. At Qingshu Palace, Yu Rong walked out of the hall. Her brow was furrowed. She looked up at the sky. For some reason, there seemed to be a faint pressure in the sky, growing stronger and stronger. Yu Rong's fingers moved quickly, performing a divination. She turned to look at me, the one who had been balancing the red candle. I had woken up yesterday and secretly eaten a spirit herb. Although it wasn't very precious, she was still very angry. So she had punished me. "Big White, put down the candle and come here." I carefully put down the candle and slithered over to Yu Rong, coiling up before her. I looked at my nominal boss. 5 years had passed. This beautiful master had not aged at all. In fact, she looked younger. Her cultivation must have increased greatly for this to be possible, as expected of one of the 5 masters of Chunyang. "Have you been feeling a sense of dread?" I thought for a moment and nodded. This is a demonic beast's heavenly tribulation. If you pass it, the benefits are great. If you fail, your soul will be scattered. Not even your bones will remain. You've eaten a lot of waste medicinal dregs these past few years. It's impressive that you could absorb and convert them. Very good. For the next few days, you should rest well. Prepare to face your tribulation. But it's best not to do it within the sect. Don't do it in the sect, and don't even think about avoiding it. The words, heavenly tribulation, stirred an indescribable sadness in my heart. Human cultivators didn't have to worry about such things. They just had to cultivate diligently. At most, they'd face one tribulation when they reached their peak and were ready to ascend, to see if they were worthy. Other species had it much worse. They had to face a tribulation not long after starting their cultivation, and then another one when they were ready to ascend. They had one more tribulation than humans. Don't underestimate that one extra time. Most demons met their end there. It would be one thing if their power soared after the tribulation, but after passing it, they were still just a minor demon. A human cultivator could flash a magic treasure, and you'd be finished instantly. It was downright species discrimination. Su Ling looked at me, her eyes filled with pity. 5 years had passed. Now Su Ling was a graceful young beauty. Cultivators were never ugly. Su Ling was a petite beauty among beauties, playful and cute, just a little mischievous. As for that guy Yang Mu, with his 1,000-year-old iceberg face, he was either practicing his sword or doing his assignments. But after learning I was facing a tribulation, he still gave me all his healing pills. The meaning in his eyes was clear. His face said only 3 words. Don't you die. Big White is so pitiful. Master, can't you give it some spiritual energy to help it through the tribulation? Yang Mu stood by, and although he didn't say anything, he meant the same as Su Ling. He hoped their master would give some good items to help me survive the tribulation safely. Yurong didn't want me to die either. Qingshu Palace only had 3 people and 1 snake. If one of us was gone, it would be terribly boring. Yurong shook her head helplessly. This girl hasn't learned much else, but she certainly learned how to wheedle. In the entire Chunyang Palace, only her branch had this kind of warmth. Demon cultivation is extremely difficult. We humans are the spirit of all creation. We are spared many hardships. For demons, just awakening their intelligence is incredibly hard. And then, when they achieve some progress in cultivation, they must face the heavenly tribulation. The cultivation of birds and beasts goes against the heavens. It is fraught with peril. When a demon faces a tribulation, using magical treasures is the worst strategy. If they rely on external objects to pass the tribulation, when it's time to take human form, they will struggle to transform completely. They will be neither human nor beast. Even their intelligence will be lacking. Therefore, they must withstand the tribulation with their own bodies. Accept the baptism. Only then can they be purified and build a solid foundation. It is a matter of fate. You can rest assured. I nodded to show I understood, but I was still very nervous. Yurong said to Su Ling and Yang Mu, I have a task for you. The white snake will face its tribulation at the foot of the mountain. Someone must be present to prevent scoundrels from taking advantage of the situation. You two will guard it personally. It will also be an opportunity for you to experience the power of heaven and earth. Although I didn't get any spiritual treasures to help, having guards wasn't bad. I thought to myself, who would dare to provoke the wrath of Chunyang Palace by causing trouble? After a moment's thought, Su Ling slipped out the door. She felt that she and her senior brother weren't enough people, so she decided to use her connections and ask her friends for help. More people meant more security. Not long after, I slowly made my way to the sect gate. I was carrying a large gourd in my mouth. It was filled with all sorts of waste pills. Also, Su Ling and Yang Mu had given me high-quality healing elixirs. Yang Mu landed and walked out with me. Soon, a group of chattering female cultivators and their followers swarmed out the gate. The disciples guarding the mountain gate stared in amazement. I was very happy. The gloomy clouds that had been gathering above my head for days and the depression they brought lessened a lot. The biggest fear for a demonic beast during its tribulation is interference. Not only are most demonic beasts loners, but their natural enemies would never pass up such an opportunity. And those human cultivators, like cats smelling fish, would never let you go. If the tribulation is successful, the weakened beast is extremely easy to capture. They can be used as enforcers or just disemboweled on the spot. If the tribulation fails, one can only pick up the bones left behind by the lightning, flesh, and so on to get materials for alchemy. In short, it was a no-loss business. At the foot of an unnamed hill below Manhwa, on an unnamed hillock, I coiled up on the summit. I couldn't move or run. I could only accept my fate. When facing an inescapable heavenly tribulation, the only choice is to fight to the death. Survive and a vast world awaits. Fail and you die. There's not even a chance to respawn in the starter village. Above my head, dark clouds roiled. Felt like they could crash down at any moment. Su Ling looked at the sky with some fear. Even for a low-level demon, a tribulation was not something to be taken lightly. The immense heavenly pressure seemed to be a warning to every cultivator who dared to defy the heavens. Nearby, rats frantically moved their homes, getting away from the storm center. The birds and beasts had long since vanished without a trace. A few tents appeared near the hill. Su Ling and the other female disciples stayed in the tents. The strange phenomenon in the sky attracted a lot of attention. 5 or 6 cultivators used their movement skills to arrive near the hill. They saw the motionless white snake on the summit, and they also saw the disciples from Chunyang Palace. They specialized in capturing or hunting demonic beasts to trade for cultivation resources. Their most common activity was looking for beasts undergoing tribulation, and then waiting for an opportunity to pick up the spoils. Senior brother, That white snake is very rare. If we catch it after its tribulation, it will surely sell for a high price. If it sells for a lot, we'll get a commission too. Tribulating beasts are common, but a white snake is a rare sight, especially its skin. It's as smooth and fine as jade. Extremely rare indeed. Strange. How dare a demonic beast come to the foot of Mount Hua for its tribulation? If we hadn't been passing by, we would have never seen it. And what are those Chunyang Palace disciples doing? Don't tell me they're also trying to catch the beast? The young cultivator looked to be in his 20s. He raised his hand to stop the discussion. He looked at the white snake, his face showing greed. Then he looked at the Chunyang disciples with confusion. After thinking for a moment, he walked alone towards where Su Ling and the others were. Yang Mu's eyes opened. He glanced over with a blank expression. Then he floated down gently to stand in front of Su Ling. Su Ling and the other female cultivators glanced at the newcomers, and then ignored them. Having Yang Mu deal with them was enough. As for anyone daring to cause trouble here, that was even more impossible. Although it was at the foot of the mountain, it was still Chunyang Palace's territory. The status of Chunyang Palace in the cultivation world was self-evident. Greetings, fellow Taoists of Chunyang. I am Zheng Yong, and I have come here to slay demons. I greet you all. Standing opposite him was the eternal iceberg, Yang Mu. Yang Mu gave Zheng Yong a disdainful look. He said coldly, "The snake belongs to our Chunyang Palace." After speaking, Yang Mu closed his eyes. "Is that so? I wonder if you'd be willing to part with a fine piece of its skin? It's worth 1,000 gold pieces. Get lost." His arrogance was extreme. Zheng Yong's patience was at its limit. Zheng Yong was stunned. A dark anger surged in his heart. Since when did Chunyang Palace start raising demonic beasts? Could this kid be messing with me? How dare a mere boy look down on me? Having survived in the cultivation world for years, who hadn't conned someone before? If you're not ruthless, you can't survive. Perhaps his killing intent was too obvious. Yang Mu opened his eyes. He looked coldly at Zheng Yong. The sword on his back was already half drawn. A shiver ran through Zheng Yong. He quickly suppressed his thoughts. "Then I won't disturb you any longer. I'll take my leave." Before things could turn ugly, Zheng Yong quickly left. Whether he really wanted to fight or was just putting on a show, he couldn't be too conspicuous here. This was Mount Hua's territory. If he really provoked the great masters of Chunyang, not only would his backer be unable to protect him, his backer might even be uprooted by them. Returning to his companions, Zheng Yong was furious. His envy and jealousy of the disciples from the great sects turned into deep hatred. Reason told him not to cause trouble, but his heart was conflicted. "Boss, those Taoists are interfering. Don't ask too many questions. Let's go." Yang Mu watched coldly as the cultivators disappeared. He didn't know whether to call them bold or just stupid. How dare they covet a beast raised by one of the great five masters of Chunyang? It seemed that Chunyang Palace had not shown its might to the world for a long time. On the other side, Zheng Yong led his companions to the town at the foot of Mount Hua. They entered an inn. Pushing open a door, they saw a handsome young man of about 20. Senior Brother Lin. The one undergoing tribulation is a white snake demon. But those Chunyang Taoists are guarding it. They won't let us act. They even claim it's their beast. They're just a bunch of kids. Senior Brother Lin, why don't we? As he spoke, he made a throat-slitting gesture. Hearing this, Senior Brother Lin smiled, his face full of scorn. After their secret plotting, a group of cultivators headed straight for the unnamed hill. On the hill, I had been motionless for 3 days. The black clouds above had turned as dark as ink, pressing down so hard it was difficult to breathe. I awoke from a long slumber. I knew the heavenly tribulation was about to begin. Although my eyes couldn't see far, I could feel the immense pressure, facing life and death, actually awakened the depths of my soul, that ferocious, bloodthirsty beast within. If I couldn't escape it, I would charge forward. Even in death, I would let the heavens know that on this earth there was a tiny, humble snake that was not afraid to die. In that instant, it was as if I wasn't that greedy, thieving white snake anymore, but a true savage beast. The clouds below the mountain stirred, attracting the attention of many. Yurong's beautiful brow furrowed. She realized things were starting to go off track. Normally, a beast's tribulation was just a matter of gathering dark clouds and lightning strikes. When did it turn into a swirling vortex of thunderclouds? This shouldn't be happening. It's just a mere snake demon undergoing its tribulation, not some ancient, ferocious beast. Besides, the white snake doesn't have any rare, ancient bloodline. Why is this happening? After some thought, Yurong flew towards Yushu Palace, where the sect leader resided. The Chunyang sect leader, Li Xiangyan, stood before the hall, as if he knew his junior sister was coming. Li Xiangyan looked very old. He wore the jade crown of a sect leader and the robes of a sect leader. His white eyebrows and beard nearly reached his waist. He held a horsetail whisk and looked drowsy. He looked just like an ordinary old man. But those who knew the sect leader were aware that he had long ago reached the realm of ascension. His cultivation was unfathomably profound. "Greetings, sect leader senior brother." Li Xiangyan smiled, his beard and eyebrows fluttering in the wind. He had an air of serene detachment. "Junior sister, have you come about the white snake?" "Indeed, it's just a transformation tribulation, but it's so violent. I fear my little snake will not survive." "Senior brother, do you know why?" "Opportunity, fate, and fortune." Yurong did not understand. Yurong was confused. "This snake's tribulation is incredibly dangerous. It is far more difficult than that of an ordinary beast. If it passes this transformation, its future achievements will be limitless. This is its opportunity. All things in the world have a predetermined path. Even I can only divine a fraction of it. This is its fate. This tribulation is the white snake's good fortune. Junior sister, do not worry. The little snake's destiny does not end here. Nurture it well. Perhaps in the future, it can add to the fortune of our Chunyang sect. Ha ha ha. Li Xiangyan laughed heartily after he finished speaking. He returned to Yushu Palace. Yurong breathed a sigh of relief. She became somewhat intrigued by what her senior brother had said about adding to the sect's fortune. Down below, at the center of the storm, I prepared to face the tribulation. Ink-black clouds covered the world, making it seem like dusk. Su Ling and the others subconsciously retreated, moving farther away. They didn't notice the cultivators in the woods behind them, watching with covetous eyes. Only Yang Mu glanced back in confusion. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. A senior disciple of Chunyang Palace felt that they must act before the white snake completed its tribulation, and deal with these petty nuisances. Zhang Yong and senior brother Lin stared at the Chunyang disciples, eager to make a move, especially the female cultivators like Su Ling. They stirred a lustful fire within them. They wished they could capture them and sell them to evil cultivators. After ogling them, Zhang Yong and the others turned around, only to see a Chunyang disciple standing in the sky, and he was flying on a sword. The senior Chunyang disciple couldn't be bothered to listen to any explanations. A flash of sword light and several corpses appeared on the scene. Yang Mu turned and saw his fellow disciple. He also saw the sword's light. He knew the senior brother had helped eliminate the hidden threat. He bowed from a distance. The senior disciple returned the bow and turned, flying back towards the sect gate. Su Ling, as oblivious as ever, even waved at the distant light. Ha! Isn't that the senior brother who guards the sect gate? What was he doing here? Shaking his head, Yang Mu felt that he should go down the mountain for training more often in the future, and he had to bring Su Ling along. Chunyang Palace needed experienced and decisive cultivators. A loud shout brought everyone's attention back. The heavenly tribulation has begun. The scene seemed to freeze. In slow motion, a blinding light burst from the clouds, followed by a dazzling bolt of lightning that snaked its way down, straight for the white snake with its head held high. The white snake was struck in an instant. After a deafening crack, the white snake, which had just been holding its head high on the hill, was now lying flat on the ground. The scales on its head were scorched and smoking. With my sharp sense of smell, I could even smell my own skin being roasted. The pain was excruciating. The feeling of being struck by lightning was far worse than touching a live wire. My entire body went numb instantly. I shook my head. I was filled with rage. Just as I finished cursing in my mind, another bolt struck. Normally, the lightning shouldn't come so quickly. It needs time to gather power, but it changed from single shots to rapid fire. My numb brain thought it was my fault for cursing the heavens. I can't curse now. Wouldn't it be better to curse after the tribulation is over? Just as I thought this, another bolt struck down. My scales were shattered, revealing flesh and blood. At Manhwa, in Yushu Palace, the old sect leader watched the continuous flashing. He was puzzled. Strange. When did the heavenly tribulation change its pattern? The scales on my back were shattered. I was covered in blood. The demon energy inside me rapidly healed my wounds, but the speed of flesh regeneration was clearly no match for the speed of the lightning strikes. Especially the scales, which acted as my armor, couldn't grow back quickly. The lightning striking my open wounds caused even greater damage. The damage was immense. One moment I was a white snake. In a few breaths, I became a bloody mess. Watching from a distance, Su Ling and the others were terrified. They remembered that they were also cultivators, and if they ever ascended, they too would have to face a heavenly tribulation. They were so scared their Tao hearts became unstable. Fortunately, they were young and quickly regained their composure. This experience would at least prepare them for the future, so they wouldn't be completely ignorant. It was a trial in itself. After 7 or 8 bolts of lightning, it finally stopped. It wasn't that the lightning tribulation was over, but rather it was gathering for a bigger attack. Nearly hammered into the ground, I raised my head, shaking off the dirt. My once lively snake eyes were now filled with spiritual light. The heavenly tribulation is both a disaster and a test. With every bolt of lightning I endured, my body would change. The pain and blood completely awakened the wild nature in my heart. I didn't even take the healing pills I had prepared. Filled with ferocity, I glared at the heavens. I had gone mad. No, I wasn't mad. Relying on external objects to pass the tribulation is an incomplete success and will leave flaws. For example, many demons with human bodies still have beastly features. This is because they took shortcuts and used external aids during their tribulation. Overcoming the tribulation with one's own strength brings great enhancement. At the same cultivation level, they are stronger than humans. Humans only cultivate magical arts. They rarely cultivate their physical bodies. Their cultivation speed is fast. Demon beasts are more balanced and focus on body tempering. We humans can only defeat demon beasts by relying on better cultivation techniques and magic treasures. Can only defeat demon beasts. Fundamentally, we have our shortcomings. Indeed, the constitution of demon beasts is very strong. But junior sister, there's no need to overthink it. Humans cultivate much faster than demon beasts. The cultivation speed of demons is extremely slow. It takes them almost 10 times 100, 1,000, or even 10,000 times longer than humans. This accumulation over long years makes their power extremely profound and vast. If you encounter one in the future, you must be careful. Senior brother, you know so much. Master taught us this long ago. It's also in the scriptures in the library. Junior sister, you probably forgot because you were too busy playing. The raging lightning continued to temper my body. Facing the heavenly tribulation, the most important thing is perseverance. The lightning struck again, splitting my flesh and revealing my blood-soaked bones. Sparks of electricity coursed over my body before dissipating into the earth. The immense pain constantly stimulated me, my soul teetering on the edge of fainting. I knew I absolutely could not faint now. Otherwise, I would surely die. The black cloud vortex in the sky was still brewing. I could feel the final bolt of lightning approaching. If I could endure it, a vast new world awaited. If not, this would be the end. This cannot be my end. All I could do now was raise my defiant head to let the heavens know that on this earth, there was a tiny white snake that refused to yield. I opened my mouth and let out a warning roar to the sky. My mouth opened wide, revealing two sharp fangs. Dabai has gone mad. The onlookers, Su Ling and the others, were stunned. They were terrified of the heaven's might, but they also admired the unyielding figure of the white snake. In a daze, their own cultivation realms unknowingly improved. My fierce defiance seemed to provoke the heavenly lightning. A mysterious purple bolt of lightning descended from the dark cloud vortex, instantly smashing the white snake with its raised head into the ground, creating a deep crater. The purple lightning burned the white snake to a crisp. The vortex dissipated. Sunlight streamed through the gaps in the dark clouds. Su Ling, Yangmu, and the others rushed up the hill. They stared at the black object in the crater, at a loss for what to do. Dabai has been burnt to charcoal. Yangmu also felt that things had taken an unexpected turn. The long, black object in the crater, wasn't it just charcoal? To think the might of the heavens would roast Dabai completely. Dabai has become Dahe. Yangmu's face darkened. Suddenly, a sound was heard. Crack! Yangmu raised a hand to stop Su Ling's sobbing. Yangmu pricked up his ears, staring intently at the long piece of charcoal in the crater. Just now, the long piece of charcoal, though quiet, that sound had appeared abruptly. Could it be that Dabai wasn't dead? Then, everyone heard the sound. Crack, crackle. The sound was indeed coming from the charcoal. They saw the charcoal around what was probably the head begin to crack. Fissures appeared, and the charred crust crumbled away, revealing jade-like white scales underneath. A snake's head emerged. The white snake had successfully passed the tribulation. Overjoyed, Su Ling wanted to go forward, but Yangmu grabbed her. Don't move. The white snake is shedding its skin. During a lightning tribulation, the heavens actually give more than they take. The body is strengthened, and cultivation becomes more refined. For snakes, the most direct sign of progress is shedding their skin. It simply and clearly signifies metamorphosis. The charcoal broke apart. A larger white snake appeared. Having escaped death, I was ecstatic. Now I could live for a very, very long time. I didn't have to worry about something like ascension. It's best not to have high hopes for something like that. Besides, even if I did ascend and face another tribulation, who knows how many years from now that would be. I raised my head high. I had passed the tribulation. This was a transformation tribulation. This meant that after the tribulation, I could use transformation arts. The most common one is transforming into a human. To walk among mortals. All those countless stories of fox spirits and scholars, or some wild boar demon becoming a son-in-law. They're all about this. Of course, most demons don't have nothing better to do than to show off in the human world. Otherwise, they'd sooner or later be hunted down and have their heads mounted as trophies. The turmoil of the tribulation quickly subsided. I went back to my daily routine of guarding the gate or eating failed pills. Occasionally, I'd go to the main peak to stand watch and steal snacks. However, perhaps Su Ling and Yangmu were scared by the heavens. They began to cultivate more diligently and seriously. The change was immense. Yurong was very gratified by this. As for transformation, I had to figure it out on my own. The idea that one just turns into a human after being struck by lightning doesn't quite make sense. So painful. How could one have the time to control their entire body to transform? After being struck by lightning, one simply becomes more adept at controlling energy. This can then be used to adjust the body and transform. To permanently abandon one's beast form and become human, that's even more meaningless. Everything in the world has a reason to exist. There's no need to abandon my own race and become something that's neither human nor beast. Humans are humans, and demons are demons. The fundamental nature doesn't change. I knew that I could transform after the tribulation, but I wasn't in a hurry. It didn't matter whether I transformed or not. I had been in this Shensha world for 65 years. I was already used to being a reptile. I was indifferent to my lifestyle habits, and there were no demon beast cultivation techniques in Chunyang Palace. So, I simply switched to cultivating the Chunyang Taoist techniques, and it was quite successful. I wonder what the Chunyang ancestor's expression would be if he knew his techniques were being cultivated by a snake. I wonder what his expression would be. In the main hall of Qingshu Palace, Yurong sat in the main seat. Su Ling and Yangmu stood respectfully. After witnessing Dabai's tribulation, what have you learned? Linger, you go first. Su Ling cautiously glanced at her master. She felt that she couldn't get away with being coy today. I feel that Dabai had it really tough. And Su Ling looked up, looking pitifully at Yangmu, hoping her senior brother could divert their master's attention. And, Muer, you speak. Yes, master. First, tribulations can be easily interfered with by others. One must have a foolproof plan or make the enemy too afraid to act recklessly. Second, junior sister and I lack experience in the world. We didn't even notice those people hiding behind us. Third, cultivation is about defying the heavens. We cultivate for that sliver of a chance at life. No matter how difficult, we must never give up. Fourth, the heavenly tribulation is a test for cultivators like us. We must summon the courage to face it. If we don't even have courage, then what's the point of cultivating? Very good. Cultivation is not easy. It is even harder for Dai than for you. Humans live in a comfortable environment with abundant resources. When you cultivate, you don't have to worry about a transformation tribulation, nor do you have to fight every day just to survive. Humans are the favored children of heaven, but don't be arrogant because of it. For Dai to have survived until now, it has experienced countless crises. It grows stronger with every setback. This is something you must learn from. The two young disciples nodded in agreement. Reading 10,000 books is not as good as traveling 10,000 miles. In a few days, you two will go down the mountain for training. Yurong had thought that if she sent her two disciples down the mountain, they would be sad and unwilling to leave. But unexpectedly, when Su Ling heard the words, "Go down the mountain," her eyes lit up. Her expression was one of excitement. Even the corners of the stoic-faced Yang Mu's mouth turned up in a smile. For a moment, Yurong couldn't believe her eyes. Were these two really her personal disciples? So when do we go down the mountain? Perhaps Yurong felt a little sentimental. When children grow up, they don't want to stay home. She got up and left. Her words drifted back to her two disciples. When Dai can transform, the three of you can go down the mountain together. Let's go find Dai. We have to make him transform quickly, so we can go down the mountain to have fun. I've wanted to see Chang'an for so long. See Chang'an. In a flurry, Su Ling dashed off towards Lingshu Palace. At this time of day, Dai should be there, waiting for the disciples of the Lingshu branch to refine pills, fail, and then eat the failed pills. It's estimated that in all of Chunyang Palace, only the white snake's wish left the Lingshu disciples speechless. The manager of Lingshu Palace's pill repository looked at the failed pills in his hand and shook his head. For some reason, the failure rate had increased a lot recently. The untransformed white snake was confused. I looked at the expectant faces of Su Ling and Yang Mu. I didn't understand why they wanted me to transform so quickly. Eating failed pills, watching the peak, and stealing some snacks was a pretty good life. Why would I want to become human? Slithering is the most comfortable way to get around. Not wanting to bother with these two crazies, I turned to leave. Hey, Dai! If you transform, Master will let the three of us go down the mountain to travel. It's so much fun down the mountain. I was unmoved. Fun down the mountain is full of bandits and heroes with nothing better to do who want to exterminate demons, but are actually just collecting materials for alchemy and body tempering. A little snake spirit like me would sooner or later be caught and thrown into a circus troupe to perform. Yes, to be precise, I couldn't be considered a true demon yet. Snake spirit was the most accurate term. Dai, don't go. I twisted my body and slithered away quickly. This girl Su Ling is the most unreliable. Even Yang Mu has been infected by her. I heard that Chang'an is the most prosperous city, where you can often see people from the western regions. In Suzhou of Jiangnan, the literary scene is flourishing. Poetry conferences produce countless talented individuals. Why don't we go take a look? I paused. After thinking for a moment, I thought that seeing the most prosperous city of the ancient world, Chang'an, wouldn't be so bad, so I nodded in agreement. Yang Mu's expression was cool and aloof, but he smiled faintly. He turned and left with a flourish, hiding his contribution and fame. Su Ling was full of admiration. Having decided to transform, I found a cave halfway up the back mountain of Qingshu Palace. I called it secluded cultivation. In reality, no one could get in. The cave entrance was narrow and wound for dozens of meters. It was a secluded grotto. It was just a transformation, not a matter of life and death. The first transformation was very slow. It felt as if all my bones were being crushed and reformed. I felt it would take several days to complete. It is said that after the first transformation, one can switch forms easily and quickly in the future. For the first few days, I lay motionless in the cave until my cells and bones were reformed and adapted to the change. Only then did I begin my first transformation. Some substance in the stalactites emitted a faint glow, illuminating the cave. After shedding my skin during the lightning tribulation, my 12-meter-long body began to shorten, and my body shortened, slowly taking on human features. After the detailed changes to my body were complete, my closed eyes snapped open. They were still snake-like vertical pupils. Then I closed my eyes and blinked again. They had changed into human pupils. Standing on two legs felt very unnatural. I still habitually wanted to lie on the ground and crawl. I tried hard to recall the feeling of walking from my past life. My legs gradually became steady. However, I felt that something was wrong with my transformed body. There were no mirrors here. I'd have to go back to Qingshu Palace to take a look. Actually, I didn't care what I looked like. This attitude was normal. Even though I was a human in my past life, I had spent over 60 years as a cold-blooded crawling animal, hunting and killing. What was there to care about? My mindset was exceptionally calm. I wouldn't even care if I turned into a monster that was neither human nor snake. At worst, I'd just stay in the 100,000 mountains forever. I leaped forward and almost instantly changed back into my large snake form. I quickly slithered out of the cave and made my way back to Qingshu Palace. I happened to see Yurong and her two disciples cultivating. I used the art of transformation. As I transformed, my scales turned into clothing. In the blink of an eye, I took human form. Strangely, I found that I seemed a bit short, about the same height as Su Ling. Then, Yu Rong and her 2 disciples, who were cultivating in front of the hall, stared, dumbfounded. Yang Mu, in particular, could be described as petrified. He didn't even notice the flying sword in his hand fall to the ground. What a complete transformation. Su Ling looked me up and down. "You should dress up a bit," she said. Yang Mu only said 3 words. "So beautiful." I looked at the 3 of them, then looked down at myself. I noticed my chest seemed a bit high. "You don't know what you look like?" I nodded. "I really haven't looked. There was no mirror in the cave. I have a bronze mirror in my study. Go take a look." I leaped forward, turning back into a large snake again, and quickly slithered towards Yu Rong's study. As for what I'd become, it was like drawing a lottery. Maybe I'd win nothing, or maybe I'd win 5 million. After slithering into the study, I instantly transformed into a human. And then, I was stunned. In the mirror was a girl. Not very tall, around 15 years old. She had a petite and delicate figure, slender and graceful, a willow-like waist that could be encircled with one hand. Her hands were as soft as silk, her skin like congealed cream, crescent moon eyebrows, and cherry-like lips. Her slightly upturned phoenix eyes and delicate nose gave her an indescribable purity. Her charming smile, her beautiful, expressive eyes. Her beauty was not of this world. She looked like a fairy from the legends. There was no seductiveness, no coyness, only an otherworldly, ethereal quality. An otherworldly, ethereal quality. I raised my hand in surprise. The fairy in the mirror raised her hand too. I remembered back when I was in the 100,000 mountains, all those male snakes that crazily approached and danced for me. I should have known then that I was a female snake. After transforming, of course I would be a woman. Fate truly plays tricks on people. There was no discomfort and no particular emotions. It had been 65 years. 65 years is enough to change anyone's mindset. I was already used to everything in this world. It was just a female form. In a flash, my mind returned to peace. A heavy rain began to fall outside the window. A vast curtain of rain shrouded heaven and earth. The moisture made the white snake feel comfortable, wanting to get some sun. She walked out of the study. The 3, cultivating their minds, sat in the pavilion. Su Ling swiftly stepped forward, looking left and right, her face full of curiosity. For her, it was her first time seeing a transformed demon. If she could, she wanted to pinch the person in front of her to see if she was real and see where the snake spirit was hidden. You've gained sentience. Transformation is not easy. Remember, in the future, never bring harm to the human world or commit wanton slaughter. The path is long. You should cultivate peacefully. Don't waste this hard-won fortune. The white snake nodded. The 3 of them were startled. Hearing a hiss from a human mouth felt very strange. Even the white snake herself was stunned. She had just wanted to speak. She had just wanted to speak. Why did only a hiss come out? The white snake frantically clutched her throat and shook her head. But what came out was still a snake's hiss. No matter how she changed her mouth shape, it was useless. It was as if she was still a snake. Animals have a hanggu in their mouths. Only by refining this hanggu can they speak human words. For transformed beasts, refining the hanggu in their mouths is not difficult. It would take at most a few days to refine. Su Ling and Yang Mu suddenly understood. Yu Rong nodded helplessly. Our Chunyang Palace does not accept demonic beasts as disciples, so just stay as you were before. Anyway, there are many techniques in Chunyang Palace, enough for you to use. Remember to wear the jade pendant on your waist to avoid being misunderstood by the disciples within the sect. Wait until you've refined your hanggu before going down the mountain. She nodded again, without any expression. It wasn't that she didn't want to make an expression, but that she couldn't. To make an expression, one must control facial muscles. But serpentine creatures don't express emotions through their faces, nor do they have the habit of controlling facial muscles. Even in human form, she didn't know how to control them. If a demon who had never understood humans could immediately speak after transforming and make any human expression, that would be pure nonsense. Even a demon who understands humans would need to adapt and learn to control their muscles. To assume that upon transformation, muscles can be immediately controlled, and one can speak and laugh immediately is quite absurd. Do you have a name? Big White doesn't count. Pick a new name. Naming was a bit difficult. After a little thought, she had an idea. Since her body was that of a white snake, she would use Bai as her surname. Outside, the rain poured down, so her name would include you, Rain. Her dream was to become a king, to become a divine monarch. The combination of prince and gentleman was Wanzi. She beckoned for a writing brush. With her right hand, she held the brush in an extremely unpracticed manner and wrote on the paper. The 3 found it quite normal. If she could write excellent calligraphy immediately after transforming, that would be problematic. The 3 characters Bai Yujun sprang onto the paper. Bai Yujun. What a good name. The 3 young people walked into the dining hall. They were Bai Yujun, Su Ling, and Yang Mu. Many people cast sidelong glances. A certain young male disciple had the bun in his hand snatched by a junior disciple next to him, yet didn't even notice. All their gazes fell uniformly on Bai Yujun. There were many beauties on the mountain, but none were as beautiful, so youthful, as if her charm was otherworldly, not an inch too much. The girls pinched their own ears and twisted hard. The young men who weren't pinching their ears stirred restlessly. Su Ling and Yang Mu found an empty spot and sat down. Bai Yujun walked towards the kitchen. Many disciples whispered among themselves, discussing the identity of the new beauty. She wasn't wearing a Taoist robe, but a white dress. A Taoist robe, a white dress. Nor did did they see any tokens or swords identifying her as a disciple. No one could guess her identity. Only a few senior disciples felt that the jade pendant was very familiar. "Girl, have you taken a wrong turn?" Bai Yujun looked up and smiled, thanking Uncle Fat for his care over the years. A young chef's cleaver clattered to the ground. She nearly stomped her feet as she walked to the familiar backyard. She arrived at the large basin specially prepared for her, filled with bloody meat. Although the basin only contained scraps, the quantity was large, enough to fill her up. Uncle Fat arrived in the backyard. Then, he saw the most bizarre and terrifying scene of his life. The sun was warm, birds chirped. The unbelievably beautiful young girl was squatting by the wooden basin full of meat. Her slender hands picked up a bloody piece of meat and stuffed it into her mouth, swallowing it directly without even chewing. Uncle Fat felt the world must have gone mad. Qingshu Palace. Many Qingshu Palace disciples with gourds hanging from their waists saw a beauty in white walk into the main hall, and when she walked, she moved left and right, walking in an S shape. The palace's protective array did not repel her. It was the steward in charge of managing waste pills and medicinal dregs, who inexplicably watched the young girl walk in, and then obediently sat down beside him. Just as he was about to ask who she was, he saw the girl grab a handful of waste pills and directly stuff them into her mouth. Shoveling handfuls into her mouth, the steward stared, dumbfounded. Those were meant for the big snake. How did she eat them all? She wouldn't be poisoned, would she, after eating the waste pills and medicinal dregs? Bai Yujun smiled at the steward and leisurely left. The steward behind her saw the girl with the jade pendant from the white snake tied to her waist and could eat the waste pills and medicinal dregs without worry. Could it be that one? Another batch of new disciples entered the mountain gate. Disciples ranging from 6 to 15 years old were observing the traditions, experiencing the style of cultivation. However, today there was one girl who wasn't wearing a Taoist robe and didn't wear a disciple's token, climbing the mountain. After the senior disciples here checked her jade pendant, they did not stop her. On a giant rock at the mountain peak, surrounded by mist like a fairyland, beneath a giant peach tree so large it would take 5 or 6 people to embrace it. Empty your minds and fill your bellies. Retain your spirit. Contemplate your body to reach the state of entering the realm. Fasting the mind and observing, practicing breathing exercises under the peach tree. A girl in white sat on the tree, with her legs swinging back and forth, comprehending its meaning and feeling its tranquility. Bai Yujun openly and honestly studied the art. Sitting on the peach tree, she could see far and also feel the slightly cool mountain breeze. It was very comfortable, listening carefully to the lecture. Time flew by. Great changes occurred. Bai Yujun, Su Ling and Yang Mu went down the mountain for experience. Their footprints covered the 9 provinces. They once admired the myriad lights of Chang'an City, and once listened to the lingering drizzles by West Lake. They once wielded swords to slay demon souls and protected the peace of a region. They also ventured deep into secret realms to explore ancient sects. Over hundreds of years, Su Ling and Yang Mu successively achieved great cultivation, becoming the new pillars of Chunyang Palace. Meanwhile, Bai Yujun, through repeated arduous cultivation, shed her youthfulness, and her cultivation steadily advanced. It was already deep into the night. She had long been up all night. Even ordinary demon kings would be troubled by this. The demon core within her body was taking effect. The dragon pearl was transforming. Even her head had a bulging, showing signs of forming a horn. She never forgot the 100,000 mountains. That was the starting point of her life, and the source of her power. After accompanying her friends through most of their lives' journeys, she chose to return. At this time, the 100,000 mountains, for mortals and even ordinary cultivators, was already a forbidden land.